Lastly, traction matters, right? So again, as early founders or early stage businesses, it is very difficult to show that you are making revenue or you have paying customers. But what is critical to show is that you have momentum, right? So no one is really expecting you to have customers who are paying you on time, or you have more than maybe 10 customers. But what investors expect is that you have to show proof of progress, right? So once you've identified the problem, did you speak to potential users? Did you build a working prototype? Do you have beta users? Do you have an LOI in place, right? So stuff like that. So the higher you climb on this ladder of proof, the better are your chances of getting money from an investor, right? So in an ideal state, you'd be making revenue, but it's not practically possible for our companies to do this. But very essential that you explain, with a timeline, ideally, that this is what we've achieved so far. What this does is that it de-risks the investor's call, in the sense that I don't have to worry about whether the speed of the founding team is good enough, right? Especially in today's AI world, what we are looking for is the speed and the iterative things that a founding team does that enables the business to succeed. I'm going to just skip this because I'd like you guys to ask some of these questions. Um, so ultimately, you also have to think that what is the investor trying to understand when you send across the pitch deck, right? So I think if you were to take one key takeaway, it is this: that the pitch deck should be able to explain to the investor, and he should be able to verbalize it in his own words to his team or to his partners, that this is the business within 30 seconds, right? So if your pitch deck cannot allow the VC to do that, it is very unlikely that you will be called for a meeting, right? So your pitch deck is essentially trying to compress the essence of what you're trying to build, right? So there's a very beautiful word for this. It's called compressance. It's used by a public markets investor in the US, right? Where you're trying to compress the essence of your business, right? So the pitch deck essentially should be doing that, right? That you're explaining, that the VC should be able to explain the business to anyone within 30 seconds. And so should the founder. Some of the other questions are fairly obvious, but ideally the problem should feel real, right? After I read a pitch deck, I should want to say, okay, well, maybe, if ultrasounds are not being made in India, why is this happening, right? And can we solve for it, right? It should feel real. And your solution should feel obvious. Then it makes a good, compelling case that I can present to my team internally. Lastly, we've spoken about, stage appropriate proof, which is the ladder. Lastly, how strong is the founder market fit? As I re-emphasize, this is the most important question, right? You've got to position yourself as the best team for this specific problem, right? So there are several ways that we spoke about, but you've got to be able to demonstrate that I am the right person to solve for this, right? Or if anyone is going to solve for this specific problem, it will be us. Okay, lastly, just in closing, I want to say is that the deck is the door, right? So ultimately what matters is the business behind it, right? Like, so if you've not thought through the business, if you've not done your research, if you've not actually built things, if you've not actually tried to earn revenue, none of this really matters, right? So a very good pitch deck will maybe get you a meeting, but it will eventually result in a rejection. So what you should optimize for is the business first, right? Don't optimize, over optimize for making really perfect deck slides. Even at MV, what we focus on is that, is the founder able to explain with clarity, right? And are they able to express it honestly, right? And there are some things that the founders will not know or should not know. So are they honest about it? So the objective of the pitch deck is, it's similar to a movie trailer, right? Like, so I'm sure all of you guys have seen Dhurandhar, right? The trailer itself should make you want to see the movie, right? So the pitch deck is like a trailer. What it should result in is that me buying a ticket to see the movie, right? Which is the meeting with you guys. Yeah. So I'll close with that. Thank you. We can do some questions. I have add some more slides, but I don't want to berate you. But open to questions. Yes. How do you normally go about in that process of telling them that, that we are the So see, if you're seeking money from a VC, it's very difficult unless it's a incubator kind of a fund, right? where they are quite okay if you've not started the business as yet, and they're willing to fund you at idea stage. But most VCs will want you to take the first risk, right? Like, so if you don't have enough conviction in your own business that you leave something to do, or if you sacrifice something to do this specifically, right? Like, why do dropouts get funded a lot? Because they've proven that I'm willing to take the risk of dropping out of a big university because I believe that this business could be bigger than what I would make if I were at the university, right? So the burden of proof is always on the founder, right? So you can't expect a VC to say, oh, just because you have a very cool idea, it doesn't mean that the VC will fund you, unless they're very student specific incubator like funds, which are in India very rare, and the high quality ones are almost non-existent, I would say. So unless it's a very difficult thing to become a promoter, right, or to become an entrepreneur. So if you're not willing to take the plunge yourself, and if you're not willing to show some momentum, some progress that I spoke about, you can't really expect the VC. And you would receive a very different answer from someone else, but I'm just giving you brutal honesty. Yeah. Yes.
The early stage businesses, storytelling or numbers, what is more important according to you? If I'm pitching it to you, a business idea, so what will matter to you more, a storytelling idea or an idea which is backed by numbers?
So it's always narrative and numbers. So I would not discount either. I would not say that one matters more than most, especially if you're trying to raise funds, right? So I've seen enough great businesses not get funding because they are not able to explain their story well, right? So that matters. And all of us understand via stories. So stories is, very critical. But if it is just stories and if it is just air, then ultimately you're not going to build a business. I should not be saying this, but the unfortunate reality is that in the VC world, stories matter more. That is the unfortunate reality. But if you are really serious about building a business, right, that you want to run for your life, then both are equally important. Yeah. Right. So I think one of the questions that I feel a lot of young founders have is that how formal should my pitch deck be, right? Or how can I ensure that it does not come across as immature in the sense. So I'd say that you have to lead with defining the problem very well and being very specific, right? If you come out of the blocks by saying that I'm building for, that I'm going to revolutionize Indian quick commerce, or the Indian kirana stores, right? Then that ultimately makes me disbelieve what you're saying, right? So you have to start very narrow and then build on your traction. Um, the other things that could feel immature is if you make statements like I have no competition, right, or I am building a product which practically will not have any peers. Again, these statements are very theoretical. They don't exist in the practical world. What you want to do is, even if you don't have a competition that you can identify today, your competition is that your customer not paying, right, or the competition of inertia, which is a very big competitor, right? So always explain, what are the barriers to getting the customer to pay for you. What are the last question I'd say is that what are the red flags that investors usually observe is, again, if you explain or if you make claims that you're the best in the business, right? So be honest about where you are, especially as a young founder, and state that these are the capabilities that you need to bring on board to be able to build a business, right? So that's what I'll leave you with. Thank you.